This is not a bad signing at all.
Well, we have no idea if it's a bad signing or not, because as you correctly pointed out, part of what Derek Barnett is judged by is the amount of money that he makes. He was a first-round
You don't
draft
have to
pick.
worry about that. You don't have to worry
And
about
of course
it.
you have to worry about that. You just said that you have to worry about that. You just said people judge Derek Barnett because he was the number 14 pick.
Yeah,
in the
but I
draft.
just
Well, what
told
does
you
that
that-
equate to? How much money he makes in a capped league?
But
so
I
until we know exactly how much money he's going to make,
I
we cannot state whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. Plain and simple.
I just also told you if it were anything of value, the agent would be screaming it from the top of the mountain. So you can sit there and worry about it. I'm telling you, you don't have to worry
What
about
are we
it.
talking about here, Bet? with John McMullen and Jody McDonald, and the return of Derek Barnett. That will be a major topic of conversation over the next 2 hours. We got two good guests coming your way. We'll give you the details on that in just a couple. J-Mac, what time was it you texted me yesterday with a smile emoji that Derek Barnett was
That's a good
signing
question.
with the Philadelphia Eagles?
Everything runs together. I'd have to look at my phone, but I did have a little smile. I knew it was getting, the longer, we mentioned it earlier this week on the show, the longer it was out there, the more likely he was going to be coming back. And that's exactly how it shook out. Now, I thought he'd get 1 year, he got 2 years. We'll have to see. And then people are saying, well, you got to see what the contract is. Trust me, the contract is team friendly, because the dead giveaway there is the agent didn't scream it from the top of the mountainside. I mean, if it's a good contract, you don't have any problem getting the numbers right away. The fact that I still don't know what they are, and I'll have to check if anybody got them early in the morning, but it tells you all you need to know as far as it's going to be very, very team friendly for the Eagles. And I don't have a problem with it, Jody. I don't have a problem with it. This is a reset. We talk about it all the time. Now, here's the problem. He got drafted here. Like, if he went to another team and you're going to pay him what the Eagles are going to pay him, you say, that's a pretty good rotational player. That's a pretty good fit for us. Problem is,
you know why they would say that? Because they didn't watch him play the last 4 years.
Problem is, that's it. Problem is, but you watched him play for the 4 years, whether you know it or not, Jody. You watched him play, but you also watched him play under the filter of the 14th overall pick in the draft. And the expectations change things. Nelson Aguilar is the same way. Now, you put the filter on whatever Nelson was, 19th, I think, overall in the draft. Oh, and not good. You look at him since he left. You look at him the high points here. He's a rotational receiver. He's a 3 or a 4. This team is, but you have him under the filter of a first-round pick. He's not a first-round pick. He wasn't worthy of being a first-round pick. That's where Derek Barnett is. But the difference this time, he's not getting paid like a first-round pick anymore. So if you're going to tell me, Derek Barnett or Teron Jackson, give me Derek Barnett. Give me Derek Barnett. And you still have an opportunity to still do whatever you want to do. If the draft falls the right way, I do think the David Ojabo injury, that caused a little bit of a ripple effect, because you can't just sit there at 15 and guarantee yourself one of these edge rushers. Can't do it. If you look at that top six, there's no guarantee.
Even with the Ojabo out, there's 4 or 5 of them.
There's probably 5. I guarantee.
So you're telling me they're not getting one of them?
3 off the board, right off the bat. Don't even think about Hutchinson. Don't even think about Thibodeau, and don't even think about the kid from Georgia now. Forget about that. He's not got. He's going top 10. He might go top 5. He's going so, and then you start to think about when that happens, Jody, and guys start plucking off. Say you have 3 gone in the top 7, and guys start plucking off. Well, what do teams do? I got to get an edge rusher. I got to get Johnson or Karlaftis, and they go, well, the Eagles need an edge rusher, and people try to get ahead of them. There's no guarantee that one of those 5 is going to be there at 15. This is a good safety net move. Good safety net move. I have no problem with it whatsoever. I get that it's not going to be. I get that it's not going to be popular at all. But as I put on Twitter, I've been making friends all week. So why stop now? This is not a bad signing at all.
Well, we have no idea if it's a bad signing or not, because as you correctly pointed out, part of what Derek Barnett is judged by is the amount of money that he makes. He was a first-round
You don't
draft
have to
pick.
worry about that. You don't have to worry
And
about
of course
it.
you have to worry about that. You just said that you have to worry about that. You just said people judge Derek Barnett because he was the number 14 pick.
Yeah,
in the
but I
draft.
just
Well, what
told
does
you
that
that-
equate to? How much money he makes in a capped league.
But
So
I
until we know exactly how much money he's going to make,
I
we cannot state whether it's a good deal or a bad deal. Plain and simple.
I just also told you if it were anything of value, the agent would be screaming it from the top of the mountain. So you can sit there and worry about it. I'm telling you, you don't have to worry
What
about
are we
it.
talking about here? Veteran minimum?
Well, no, probably $5 million. That's it. Probably in that range would be my guess. That's what when Bo Wolf was on the show earlier the week, that was my guess. $5 million. I have no problem with $5 million. $5 million is nothing in this league. Now, the Eagles are a little bit different. So this is the interesting disconnect that I talk about. Like everybody hates Howie Roseman. 1 year, $2.5 million.
John, everybody doesn't hate Howie Roseman. There are a lot of Eagle fans. There's a percentage of them that hate Howie Roseman. You're right about that. But I would never use the word everybody hates Howie Roseman. There are fans that want to be able to look at Howie Roseman and say, here's what Howie Roseman does well. Here's what Howie Roseman doesn't do well. Here's a mistake that Howie Roseman made. Here's a move that Howie Roseman made that we got to give him a lot of credit for. You're giving him a hell of a lot more credit for re-signing Derek Barnett. I think he just takes away from the potential of the Eagles getting a better pass rusher going forward than the 4 sacks he's going to get this upcoming year again for $5 million, $6 million, $7 million, $8 million. Not only is it what he's going to cost them, but also the fact that he's going to get snaps, because what we're seeing with this team is a desire to be comfortable, that they like players that they know, that they go out and get Zach Pascal because the coach has a comfort level with him. They bring back Anthony Harris because the coach has a comfort level with him. They're bringing back Derek Barnett because the coach has a comfort level. How about this for a line of logic? Let's go see if we can get an actual better player rather than the player that we're comfortable with, who's a marginal player.
Well, they already got a better player to rush the edge. They already got a better player.
Well, now he's going to be playing that many more downs at linebacker. I can guarantee you that, because of the bringing back of Derek Barnett, and I'm not sure that's the best way to use him.
Well, look, if you're worried about him being a starter, okay, I don't think he's going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be, on paper, if you look at it, Hassan Reddick, as they pencil it in, because that's where we are, that's all we can do in March. As they pencil it in, Hassan Reddick's going to play Sam linebacker on so-called rundowns that nobody cares about in the spring. And he on obvious passing downs in the so-called NASCAR package, he's going to be the edge rusher, predominantly with Josh Sweat. Ultimately, I think it'll be interesting. What'll be more interesting is he's going to be the defensive tackle. So you're just going to default to Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, or you're going to kick Brandon Graham inside, take one of those guys off the field. It would be Fletcher in a pass rushing situation more than Javon, believe it or not, at this stage. That to me is the more interesting part. That would be the plan for the rush. Now, if he comes back and he's the starting edge rusher, okay, yeah, I'm with you. If he takes snaps away and he's not, and Hassan Reddick's not on the field, okay, yeah, I'm with you. But that's not going to happen outside of injury. You don't pay what the Eagles paid Hassan Reddick not to use him as a pass rusher. They're going to use him. And you're going to see this contract when it does going to come back, and you're going to say everything is told by the contract. That's where everything starts. So the Eagles you brought up Zach Pascal as well, and you're right about that. There's too much of a comfort level, and you could talk all you want about Zach Pascal. He's a good third down slot receiver. He's a hard worker, and I'm talking about the Eagles. I'm not talking about you. They paid him $1.5 million with the option of getting up to 2.5 if he hits probably incentives that are not even realistic, to be honest with you. So the contract tells you everything. So yeah, all right, I'll play along. If he gets starter money, I'm with you. It's a crappy signing. If he's a fourth rotational end, he's a hell of a lot better than Teron Jackson. And oh, by the way, it's not going to forbid you from drafting Karlaftis or Johnson if they fall to 15. But if they don't fall to 15, and there's a better chance today than there was before Ojabo's injury, then it's a nice little security blanket. That's all I'm saying.
And again, I don't know how to say this any other way than just flat out say it. We don't know yet. We don't know what you gave me a good speculation. You're a good guy who can read this. You know the Eagles. You're saying about $5 million. That is, you're right. The underside of a rotational player's money on the defensive line. Not the guy who's getting the majority of the snaps, the guy who's getting the lesser of the snaps if he's sharing the position with another player. If that's the case, then a $5 million number for him is not outrageous. It's a little expensive. It's certainly more expensive than Teron Jackson would have been. And if you had just stayed with Jackson, then you could spend that money somewhere else to upgrade somewhere else rather than having to give it to Derek Barnett. I just don't think the guy's going to produce. He hasn't produced in 3 years. Why would I think he's going to produce here? His production, let's say, if it was good, it would match his production if he's playing less. I asked you to quick look this up for me. I don't know if you got it. I know he played more snaps last year than Josh Sweat did. I'd love to know what his comparison was to the two defensive tackles on this team.
He played 64% of the defensive snaps, and that number's too high. If you look at Derek Barnett, his best year probably was his rookie season, the Super Bowl season, where he was a rotational player behind Vinny Curry at the time. But really, he was the rookie, but he was the better player. And he was mainly used in more of a pass rushing situation. That was 41%, and he had 5 sacks. And then he became a starter really in 2018, but he got hurt. So he only played the first 6 games, so you can kind of throw that out. That's when he had the shoulder injury. He was actually playing pretty well before he got hurt. But he played 23% of the snaps, but he missed 11 games. Right. So that's why I say you throw it out.
You don't even use that.
Yeah. 2019, he was back, and he was at 69%. That was his career high. 2020, 49%. But again, he missed, 6 games because of injury. So that affected. And last year was 64. So really, it was in that 60 to 70 range is the bell cow. And remember, it's 2 different defensive coordinators, too. Jim Schwartz last year was Jonathan Gannon. Jim Schwartz, I can tell you flat out, loved Derek Barnett. So a little bit different. I do think Gannon liked him, but he certainly didn't like him as much as Jim did. But I thought he liked him as a player. But I do think the filter matters. I do think the filter matters, and people will always look at him, and rightfully so. I'm not saying it's wrong. Rightfully so. They will look at him in Philadelphia as the 14th overall pick. He never lived up to that designation, that pedigree. I'm not arguing that. I don't think anybody can argue that. But it doesn't mean he's a bad player. Like I always say, and I brought it up last year with the Giants, I didn't like Kadarius Toney at all in the first round of the draft. But I did like Azeez Ojulari. I thought, hey, and they got him in the second round. I said, if you give me Ojulari in the first round, you give me Tony in the second round, I'll tell you Tony's a good pick. And we'll see how it shakes out. It's way too early on both of those players. But that's my point. That's how it shifts people's thinking. It shifts my thinking. It shifts your thinking. Shifts everybody's thinking. Nelson Aguilar, look, he's the 18th, 19th pick in the draft, whatever he was. He'll always be that in Philadelphia. So he's a disappointment. Doesn't mean he's a terrible player. Jalen Reagor, he's probably a terrible player at this point until he turns anything around.
So that's how we're situating Derek Barnett here. He's not as bad as Jalen Reagor. Okay.
Well,
you want to hang your hat on that one. I can't fight you off on
that. That's my point. Derek Barnett, no, I'm not comparing the two at all because they're not comparable. One has not proven to even be an NFL player. One is clearly an NFL player. One would clearly be a rotational player on the vast majority of teams in the NFL. And I'd have to go down every list, but I mean the vast majority. I'm telling you, you probably get to the high 20s, early 30s before you can find a team that has better than 4 defensive ends than Derek Barnett. He's an NFL player. He's a legit NFL player, but he's looked at differently in Philadelphia because he's a disappointment as a first-round pick. That's all I'm saying.
And if you still have that list up, the number of snaps Fletcher played and Hargrave played, we know that Barnett played the most at end. There is usually more situational substitutions outside than there is inside. So I'm assuming that the DTs played more percentage of the snaps than he did. But I'd love to know what the percentage
Cox last year was 66%. And he played every game except the final game.
Probably same as Barnett.
Yeah, Barnett was, what did I say, 62? So same range.
64, but
64. Yeah, I didn't remember what I said. I can pull it back up. So Cox was 66. Who else did you ask? Hargrave was internet going a little bit slow.
And it would have been different had BG been able to play last year because
would have been much different. Graham would have played the most number of snaps for the edge rushers by far. 65 was Javon.
So 64, 65, 66. So Derek Barnett basically played as much as anyone on the Eagle defensive line last year.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head, Jody. That was because of injury.
Right.
Brandon would have played the most, no question about it. And then Derek would have been second and probably would have fell to third by the second half of the season when it became clear that Josh Sweat was kind of turning the corner. And yeah, I mean,
all right. Assuming we'll wrap up the first segment here because we got our buddy joining us here in just a second. Assuming health, which I know we can't. We just pointed out that if Derek Barnett had been in the mix, all those numbers you just gave me, the percentage of snap played for Barnett, for Fletcher Cox, for Hargrave would have all changed because Derek would have played outside, but he also would have played inside because Eagles used to like doing that. We don't even know if Jonathan Gannon is going to do anything like that because he's never really had Derek Barnett to use in games. So we got to see how that shakes out. But assuming health, how much of a drop-off in Derek Barnett's numbers are we looking at this year? Because you're telling me that he's a rotational player. That's all that he is a rotational player. If he's their fourth defensive end, well, last year he was their second defensive end, and if Brandon Graham comes back, that drops him to third. He should be no more than somebody's fourth defensive end, the defensive end who plays the least in the situational substitution pattern. How many percentage, what do you think his percentage snaps going to be? Does it get down to 40?
I think it would be even lower. I think it would be 20 to 30.
Okay.
I think it would be 20 to 30. If again, we're talking about 17 games, if everybody's healthy with 17 games, which is a huge if with Brandon coming off an Achilles, Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, if those three players play the vast majority of snaps, I think he's the fourth guy. And, I'd rather have him out there than Teron Jackson, but that's me.
There are some that may agree with you. There are a whole bunch that don't. I can guarantee you that. He is John McMullen. I am Jody McDonald. We are the Mac and Mac guys. We got two good guests for you. One is Philly-centric, who also does national stuff, and then a pure national guy. Coming up a little bit later, we'll talk to Connor Orr, national writer for Sports Illustrated. But coming up next, our buddy Paul Domwich from Philly Mag and 33rd Team will hop aboard with us here on Birds 365.